Hello everyone, and welcome back to the best way to learn English. I'm Sil, and today we're going to do part 4. Now part 4 is vocabulary. So today I'm going to tell you what you should not do when you learn new vocabulary in English. In the next video, I'm going to tell you what you should do. That will be part 5. But for today, I'd like to tell you what you should not do. And basically, it's this. Do not use a vocabulary list to study. So some schools will give you a list of words, maybe the most common words used in English or something like that. And they'll give you the word in your language, which is what we call L1, and then they'll give you the word in English, the language you're learning, which is L2. And students have to study these lists of words. Well, this is not a good way to learn new vocabulary. Now, very similarly, some students will use a dictionary and go through the dictionary and find words that they think might be useful, and they memorize those. This is, it's pretty similar to using a vocabulary list, and it too is a terrible way of studying English, or any language, but because we are talking about English, I'm saying English. Anyway, using a dictionary or using a vocabulary list is a terrible, terrible, terrible way to learn new vocabulary. And I will give you 6 reasons why that is. The first reason is because often in these lists or in the dictionary, you will learn words that nobody uses, or words that are outdated, and of course nobody uses those words either. As an example, when I started to study Japanese, one of the first things that people learn is how to say I love you. And in the textbook that I had, and I was using a textbook, not a dictionary or a vocabulary list, but the textbook said that how to say I love you is aishiteru. Now, if you look in the dictionary, you will also see that, and if you have a vocabulary list, you will probably also see I love you is aishiteru. So the problem here is that in Japan, native Japanese speakers almost never say aishiteru. Now there are 2 reasons for this. One is that the culture in Japan, according to the culture in Japan, people don't really say I love you very much to each other. In some Western countries, people might say I love you to each other every day, or sometimes more than that, sometimes 5 times a day or 10 times a day, or depends on the couple. But in Japan, people don't tell each other that they love each other as much as in Western culture. That's the first reason, but the next reason, which is more important, is that people rarely use the word aishiteru. When they do say I love you, they don't use the word aishiteru very much. It's almost never. What they do say is daisuki. So if you're studying Japanese and you want to tell someone that you love him or her, and you say aishiteru, it's probably going to sound odd because native speakers don't say that to each other. They say daisuki. And even when they say daisuki, they don't say it as often as a lot of Westerners say I love you. So that's one reason. The second reason is sometimes in L2, now remember, L2 is the language you're studying. So in this case, it's English. Sometimes there's no good word or no good translation in L2. and it sounds forced. So as an example, in Japan, there's a food called okonomiyaki. Okonomiyaki, some people learn that they should translate this to English as Japanese pizza. And I remember when I first came to Japan and some of my friends said, "Hey, do you like pizza?" I said, "Yeah, I love pizza." And they said, "Okay, let's go have Japanese pizza." And they took me for okonomiyaki. When I looked at it, what the hell is this? This is anything but pizza. This looks, smells, tastes nothing like a pizza. This is not pizza. This is, I don't know what it is. It's okonomiyaki, but it's not pizza. So okonomiyaki, actually, if you don't know what it is, how do I explain it? It's not a pancake. Some people call it a Japanese pancake, and it's not a pancake either. Basically, it is flat like a pancake, sort of. It's actually quite a bit thicker than a pancake, but and then it's made from flour and water, and they put things like pork and cabbage and fish or squid or other ingredients. I don't know. I don't eat it very often because I don't really like it that much. But anyway, the point is, it's not Japanese pizza. It's not a Japanese pancake. Simply, it's okonomiyaki. And there is no good translation to English for that. You have to explain it. And there are many, many words like this in Japanese where there is not a very good translation in English to English, and the word needs to be explained. And it's just a culture difference. Maybe the item or the custom exists in Japan, but not in other countries. So how do you translate that? You can't. So often this happens. It sounds forced. Number 3, the L2 word, so the word that you're learning, the L2 word choice depends on context. So another example, a Japanese example, is oshieru. Now, oshieru, the biggest meaning for oshieru is to teach. Okay. So when you say, I teach English, then you might use the word oshieru. But in Japan, or in Japanese, if someone wants, for example, the phone number of another person, they might ask that person, they might say, denwa bango oshiete kureru? So in that case it means, denwa bango is phone number, and oshieru or oshiete kureru is would you please teach me, basically. But they're using the word oshieru. So translated literally, it would be, would you teach me your phone number? In English, we would never say that. We would say, please tell me your phone number, or can I have your phone number, or would you please tell me your phone number? But we would use the word tell, not teach. And this is something that, depending on the context, we might use the word teach, or we might use the word tell. Tell me how to do something, or teach me how to do something. Again, we would use these in different situations, whereas in Japanese, they would use just the one word, oshieru. So, by looking at a dictionary or a vocabulary list, it's very difficult to know which situation to use tell and in which situation to use teach. Number 4, sometimes two words have the same meaning, exactly the same meaning, but it depends on the situation and on which word you choose. So for example, mom and mother, right? My mom or my mother. If I was in an interview and I wanted to appear very professional, I probably wouldn't say my mom, I would probably say my mother. Now you could say my mom, but it sounds a little bit too informal in some situations. So there are some times where you want to say my mom, and sometimes where you want to say my mother. And that depends on the setting. You know, are you in an interview? Who are you talking to? Etc. So that's another case where the dictionary cannot help you. In fact, it can harm you in some ways because you tend to remember just one word and you use that word all the time. Number 5 is that you can't pick up the style of L2. Okay, now here's an example. The passive versus the active voice. For example, in English, let me give you English grammar. Active, what is active voice? Maybe you know. If you don't know, basically if I say John kissed Jill, then that is active. That's the active voice. If I say Jill was kissed by John, that is the passive voice. Okay? So the passive and the active, that's the difference. John kissed Jill, active. Jill was kissed by John, passive. Okay? So, in Japanese, the language itself uses the passive voice much, much more often than in English. In English, usually, if possible, we use the active voice. So it really depends on the culture, not the culture as in, you know, the country's culture, but the language culture. So how do people typically express an idea? In English, it will be usually active. I'm not going to say, you know, for example, let's say my friend John, he hit me, okay, and then I got a black eye. So I got a black eye, I come home, and my wife, if I had a wife, would say to me, "Oh, what happened to your eye?" I would probably say, "John hit me." I wouldn't say, "I was hit by John." But in Japanese, they would probably use the passive voice. They would probably say, "John ni nagurareta," or something like that. I'm not Japanese, so ask a Japanese person if you want the perfect Japanese. But they would probably use the passive tense, or passive voice, to express the same idea. Problem is, because they're thinking in passive all the time, when Japanese people speak English, they tend to overuse the passive much, much more than we do. So it sounds unnatural. It's not wrong, it's just not natural. And number 6, finally, number 6, because we are at almost 13 minutes, for number 6, a word-for-word translation, which is something that happens if you're thinking in your language and you want to translate to the other language. It's very natural to think word for word. And so what often happens for Japanese speakers is that because in Japanese the subject is often not mentioned. For example, say in English I would say, "I am scared." In Japanese they wouldn't say "I" and they wouldn't say "am," they would just say "scared." They would say "kawaii." Okay? So if a Japanese speaker wants to translate their idea to English, they'll be thinking kawaii. And then of course you look in the dictionary and kawaii says scary or scared. So they might say scared. Well, in English we can't say that. We have to say "I'm scared," or "he's scared," or "she's scared," or "that's scary," or something like that. We need the subject for it to make sense. So if somebody says scared, well, who's scared? You're scared, or she's scared, or he's scared? What are you talking about? So a word for, like, using a dictionary and a vocabulary list tends to strengthen the habit of using word-for-word translations. And this is all really bad stuff. You don't want these things to stop you from learning English as quickly as possible. So in the next video, I'm going to tell you what you should do to learn English better and faster and more efficiently. And for today, that's it. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and I will try to answer you as quickly as I can. And that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching. Remember, if you liked the video, please click the like button. And if you know anyone who could also benefit from this lesson, please feel free to share it on your Facebook or on your webpage or with your friends at work. Thank you very much. Goodbye.